I'm about to put one of the most popular peptides in the biohacking community straight into the F tier, the do not touch category. Not because it doesn't work, because you can't undo what it might do to you. And by the end of this video, I'm putting 6 peptides into the F tier. And I'm not talking about the sketchy research chemicals that everybody already knows to avoid. I'm talking about peptides that are actively being recommended right now. But here's what makes this different from my last peptides to avoid for 2026 video. You see, that video was about peptides that don't work or aren't worth your investment. But this video, these peptides work. That's what makes them dangerous to experiment with. And I want to give you the proper framework for good experimentation moving forward with your peptide journey. I'm Dr. Jones, DC, and I lead the coaching department for our nationwide peptide and GLP-1 practice. See, I've been experimenting with peptides personally for years, so I'm not just reading studies, I'm actually seeing what happens when real people use these compounds without proper guidance. And what I've learned is this: the peptides that have the most powerful effect are not always the best peptides to experiment with. You see, that distinction is going to save you from making some irreversible mistakes. I'm going to give you my complete tier list, S for safe, through F, stay away. But more importantly, I'm giving you the exact 3-question framework that I personally use and what we teach our patients to evaluate any peptide. So even when new ones hit the market, you'll know exactly how to think about them. So let's get into the framework first, because once you understand this, the tier rankings will just make perfect sense. So when we evaluate whether a peptide is safe to experiment, we use 3 questions. And again, these are the ones that we walk our patients through. Okay, question number 1. Is there any human data, not rat or animal studies, no cells in the lab dish, actual humans taking this compound? Now here's the nuance. Having human data doesn't automatically make something safe, and lacking it doesn't automatically make something dangerous, but it sets your expectations. Limited data means you're part of the experiment. Okay, question number 2, and this is the big one. Can you course correct? If something goes wrong, can you stop and recover? This comes down to how long it stays active in your body and just what is it doing to your body. See, short-acting peptides you take daily, you can stop those and it clears from your system pretty rapid. But something that triggers permanent changes or stays active for weeks, you might be stuck with whatever side effect happens, and that might not be too comfortable. Okay, question number 3, what's the actual downside? Not theoretical. What do people actually experience when things go sideways? Temporary nausea is different from permanent hormonal changes. Feeling tired for a week is different from developing new moles that will never go away. Here's how I think about the tiers, S and A tiers. See, these peptides have solid human data, you can absolutely course correct, and the downsides are manageable. B tier, reasonable with a little bit of experimentation to it, but pay attention. C tier, proceed with a little caution, supervision recommended. And F tier, the risk to recovery ratio is broken. Something about it fails the framework in a way that we just wouldn't recommend. Now, if you're watching this and thinking, I want help figuring out which peptides actually make sense for my situation, that's exactly what we offer our free discovery calls for. You can talk to one of our patient advocates who can assess your specific needs and help you understand an approach that might work for you. You can either text the number on the screen, or you can check out the link in the description if you want to explore that. But let's get into the peptides, starting with the ones that most people overlook for all the wrong reasons. PT141. So you might know this as the love peptide. You see, it works in the brain pathways that affects arousal and desire. But this isn't like Viagra, which works primarily on blood flow. This is actually changing the signaling in your brain that dramatically affects sexual desire and sexual function. So question number 1, human data. Yes, actually, the FDA approved a version of this for women with low sexual desire. So we have real clinical trials here. Number 2, can you course correct? Yeah, you can. Based on available data, it stays in your system for a relatively short period of time, a couple hours, and it clears fairly quickly. And then number 3, what's the downside? This is where it gets interesting. Nausea can be brutal, like really brutal for some people. Flushing, headaches, and because it's working on your brain, there's this inherent unpredictability in how you're going to respond. PT41 lands in the B to C tier. It's reversible, which is good, but the brain mechanism plus intense side effects for some people means that this is something that we dial in under supervision in our clinic with our patients. Talk to your clinician before you give it a shot. Speaking of which, I'm considering a full video on optimizing sexual function libido, the fun stuff. Let me know if that would be helpful to you in the comments, and I'll add that to my list for the upcoming videos. Okay, so now shifting from libido to cognition, Semax and Selank. These are the Russian peptides with decades of clinical use over there. Semax is the focus and cognitive enhancer. See, it works on something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a brain growth factor. And then Selank, which does have a little bit of that effect, but it's more in the anti-anxiety category. It's calming without any sedation. The human data, these have been used clinically in Russia for decades and are actually on their national essentials medicines list. Is it Western FDA approved data? No, but it's not zero either. There's real clinical experience behind these compounds. Course correct easily. These are very short acting nasal sprays. You stop, they clear. Downside, in my personal experience using both and gathering feedback from our patients, they're pretty clean. The Western safety documentation is limited, of course, but I haven't seen any significant issues in patients who I coach who are using these regularly. B tier for both. Solid options for cognitive support with low experimentation risk. By the way, if this framework is starting to click for you, hit that subscribe button right now because we put out 4 videos per week on peptides, GLP-1s, and metabolic health strategies just like this. Speaking of which, let's pivot to a gut-focused peptide that you're going to want to know about. This one is called KPV. This is a gut health peptide that works on those tight gap junctions in your gut, basically helping seal a leaky gut and reducing inflammation at the tissue level. Now, the human data is limited, but what exists is promising, and the safety profile, it's clean. Again, I haven't seen any issues. Can you course correct? Absolutely. It's very short acting, minimal effects throughout the entire body. Downside? Again, we haven't seen any issues. And here's what we often do in our practice. So under clinical supervision, we actually combine the KPV with compounded oral BPC 157. So a single pill, 500 micrograms of each, does amazing for gut healing and systemic inflammation. This is not the stuff that you buy from Amazon or research chemical sites. I'm talking about legitimate compounded BPC 157 from a licensed compounding pharmacy, specifically 503A pharmacies. Patients who I coach who are using this in combination tend to report getting good results for gut healing. Of course, the controlled studies on the pairing doesn't exist yet, but I posted a video specifically on oral versions of BPC 157s and what to look out for, so I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check out that video. KPV is a B tier. Good safety profile, promising mechanisms, low risk to experiment with, so I'd say go for it. Now, staying on the gut immune axis for a second, now we need to talk about thymosin alpha 1. This is a peptide that helps balance the immune system, and it has something that most peptides don't. Over 11,000 human subjects in safety data. That's remarkable for this space. It really is, because we're really lacking human data in peptides. Course correct, yeah. Some patients report feeling a little tired initially as their immune system responds, but in my experience, that typically normalizes within a couple days. Downside? Really just the initial fatigue that we talked about earlier. If you want to address the underlying inflammation first, you don't just throw thymosin alpha 1 at a flared up immune system. That might make you feel a little crummy. You stack it as part of a comprehensive program. B tier for TA1, and honestly, this is something that we often recommend to our autoimmune patients. Consider exploring that with your clinician, or you can reach out to us if you'd like that prescription. It's one of the better studied peptides that we have access to, and actually, if you want me to do a complete video on our autoimmune peptide protocol, the supplements, the peptide, the lifestyle, and of course the diet, let me know in the comments what autoimmune disease you have and if that would be helpful to you. Okay, now a caution flag. We got Melanotan 2. This is the tanning peptide, but it's a shotgun, not a sniper rifle. It affects multiple pathways, including libido, appetite, and melanin production. Human data exists, but it's limited and mostly from recreational use communities. Course correct? See, here's the concern. The tanning effects, including new moles and darkening of existing moles, can persist for extended periods. Most sources indicate that these changes are typically reversible after stopping, but the timeline is unpredictable, and some users report changes that take months to fade or feel permanent to them, plus nausea and unpredictable flushing. Now, if you want libido enhancement, PT141 was specifically developed from Melanotan 2 to be more selective for that purpose. But if you want a tan, honestly, there are safer ways to get one. Melanotan 2 for me is the C tier. Not the worst, but the unpredictable mole changes gives me a little pause, and I've talked to a few dermatologists that also have concern with uncontrolled growth of your moles. Now let's talk about Dihexa. This is popular in the nootropic and cognitive enhancement circles, a brain peptide that shows real promise for neuroplasticity in animal studies. Question number 1, human data. Limited. We have promising animal research, but human trials are still catching up. That said, it's being used clinically under supervision for some pretty severe Alzheimer's or dementia type cases. Question number 2, can you course correct? This is where you need to be thoughtful. It's a brain peptide, so you want to approach it carefully, but it's not permanent in the way Melanotan 2 changes your moles. And then question number 3, downside. Some theoretical concerns exist around the c-Met pathways, which are part of the pathways that Dihexa is working on, that warrant clear and close monitoring. Nothing proven, but it's worth being aware of. Dihexa for us lands in the C tier. We actually recommend it with caution for certain patients working on cognitive optimization, again, driven by some enhanced cognitive conditions like Alzheimer's and dementia. This is not one to personally experiment with solo, in my opinion. The mechanism is powerful, the data is still emerging, and you're gonna want professional eyes on this one. Okay, now, Follistatin, this blocks myostatin, a natural brake on muscle growth, the unlimited muscle growth peptide that bodybuilder forums love to hype. The human data for injectable follistatin is essentially zero. We have some gene therapy research showing significant muscle mass and strength increases in primates, but that's it. And delivering it by gene therapy is completely different from a regular type peptide injection. Course correct? No, there is no course correct. You're talking about inhibiting fundamental growth regulation pathways. This isn't something you cycle off and recover from predictably. And here's the real issue. With no legitimate pharmaceutical supply, what you're getting from research chemical sites is completely unregulated. There's no quality control, there's no standardization, unknown purity. Even if follistatin had potential, you had no way to verify what you're actually injecting. Plus, theoretical concerns exist about what happens when you remove the body's natural growth regulation. Your body has a system of checks and balances. You don't want to screw with that. Now, long-term animal studies haven't shown scar-like tissue growth or tumors, but we simply don't have that data in humans yet. F tier for us. Now, here's the thing about follistatin. Potency does not equal effectiveness. A powerful mechanism with no human data and no ability to course correct is not a good experiment. It's a massive gamble that I would stay away from. Now, if you made it this far into the video, which peptides do you want a complete deep dive on? PT141, Semax, Selank, KPV, Thymosin alpha-1, Melanotan 2. Let me know in the comments which one would be most helpful to you, and I'll add it to the video list. Quick reset, the framework back on top. Let's run through the peptides that you've already heard of, ranked by how safe they are to experiment with, not by how much hype they get. The A tier, these are the ones that I'm comfortable with under proper guidance, and when appropriate, these are some of the ones that we start off in our clinic. BPC-157 injectable. This is a healing peptide. No toxic dose has been found in animal studies. Short half-life, easy to course correct. One caveat worth noting, BPC-157 does promote angiogenesis, which is new blood vessel growth. The cancer question is actually more nuanced than people think. Some in vitro research suggests it might have effects that may actually slow cancer cell growth, but out of an abundance of caution, most practitioners, including our doctors, avoid prescribing it to somebody with active cancer until we have a better understanding of that tissue-specific effects. Overall, though, this is an A tier all day. And then we have TB500. We often combine it with BPC-157. This is what we call the Wolverine stack because they work through different mechanisms. TB500 helps cells move to injury sites for musculoskeletal healing. We don't have controlled trials on the combination, but patients who we coach who use both tend to report enhanced recovery, good safety profile, and reasonable half-life. And then there's CJC without DAC, plus ipamorelin. This is our go-to growth hormone peptide stack. It releases growth hormone in short bursts that mimic your body's natural growth hormone patterns. Short-acting, easy to adjust or stop entirely. Side effects are mild, some water retention, occasional tingling, but that's it. These A-tier peptides share something in common. Solid track records, you can adjust or stop if needed, and the downsides are manageable. And then there's B-tier. These are reasonable to experiment. First on the list is AOD9604. This is one of my favorite peptides, and I use it with patients constantly, and I coach patients on it as our doctors prescribe it all the time. See, AOD is a fragment of human growth hormone that specifically targets fat mobilization. It doesn't burn fat on its own. It doesn't speed up your metabolism. What it does is it combats insulin's blockage of your fat cells. So think of it as unlocking the door so that your body can actually tap into the stored body fat. This is crucial. Now here's the key though. AOD is only gonna work if you're in a calorie deficit or if you're fasting, eating low carbohydrate diets, whatever creates that calorie deficit. Without it, you're mobilizing fat that has nowhere to go. That's why some studies have showed mixed results. People weren't pairing it with the right lifestyle interventions. That's the key to unlocking AOD. But when you combine AOD with fasting, to me, that's what I call artificially induced metabolic flexibility. So your body gets better at switching from glucose to fat for fuel. And patients who use AOD during their fast report smoother energy, less brain fog, fewer crashes. It's easy to stop, short half-life, clears quickly. Downside, very minimal in our experience. AOD lands in the B tier because it requires proper context to work, but when you use it right, paired with the fasting or calorie deficits, this one is a powerful tool. And if you're a lady with perimenopause, menopausal symptoms, and you've been told fasting is a struggle, that stress induced from fasting is real. But AOD seems to make fasting less stressful so that you can get into the deep rounds of metabolic healing fasting that are going to get you the results long-term that you're looking for. Then there's retatrutide, the triple agonist that everybody's asking about, GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon, all in one. The human trial data exists and the results are impressive. Can you course correct? Yes. You stop, it clears. Downside, it's newer, so we have less long-term data than we do on tirzepatide or semaglutide. This is B tier, promising, but in respect that it's still in the early days. GHK copper peptide that's naturally occurring in your body. It's popular in the cosmetic space for skin health, hair and nails, and wound healing. The clinical evidence is still building, but the safety profile, it's clean given that it's made naturally in your body. B tier. And then there's Sermorelin, a signal that tells your body to release growth hormone. Actually FDA approved at one point for children and adults with true growth hormone insufficiency syndromes. Similar to CJC and ipamorelin, but less community data, safe to experiment with, of course. We have a lot of data on it. This one's just not as powerful as CJC, so I put it in the B tier. Now here's where the list flips. The F tier, the peptides that I recommend against experimenting with, the ones that can box you into changes that you can't quickly undo. First one on the list, MK677. I know this is controversial because it's so popular and easy to get, but MK677 acts like ghrelin, the hunger hormone. It activates the hunger hormone pathway, and for people trying to lose weight or manage metabolic health, this works backwards. It may worsen insulin resistance and raise fasting glucose. It's a hard pass for most of our patients, F tier. And then there's CJC with DAC, the version with drug affinity complex. This is a chemical add-on that makes it last much, much longer. So here's the problem. That extended half-life means that you can't turn it off. It keeps stimulating growth hormone release for weeks. If something goes wrong, you can't course correct. Compare that to CJC without DAC, where you can simply stop and it clears in days. Same compound, completely different risk profile. F tier for the DAC version all day. And finally, the dirty GHRPs, hexarelin, GHRP6, GHRP2. These raise stress levels of cortisol and prolactin hormones. They create intense hunger signals. They're harsh, they're messy, and we have cleaner options now. CJC plus ipamorelin or Sermorelin or tesamorelin do exactly what you want without the side effect chaos. No reason to touch the old dirty GHRPs, F tier all day. Now, quick story to bring this home. Here's what separates the patients who get results from the ones who just ultimately create problems for themselves. I had a patient who came to us after stacking 5 different peptides he read about online. No framework, no supervision, no understanding of how long they last or how they work. When he started feeling off, he couldn't even identify which compounds were causing the issues. That's not experimentation, that's freaking chaos. And compare that to the patients who follow this framework. They start with the A tier peptides one at a time. They monitor their response. If something feels wrong, they know exactly what to adjust because they can pivot quickly. Always in coordination with their clinician. That's the smart experimentation pathway. The best peptide stack isn't the most powerful combination of compounds. It's understanding what you're taking, having a clear off switch, and knowing the downside is manageable. Those 3 questions apply to any peptide, even the ones that don't exist yet. Now, if you're done with the guesswork and you want help building a peptide approach that actually makes sense for your body and your goals, that's what our free discovery calls are for. You can either text the number on the screen, or you can check out the link in the description and you'll connect with one of our patient advocates. They're gonna walk through your health history, what you have already tried, and the goals that you're actually chasing. You'll get a feel for how our team works, myself, the coaches, and our medical practitioners, and we'll review programs and pricing so that you can see what long-term success with proper peptide guidance could actually look like. You can check out the link in the description if you want to explore that, or again, text the number on the screen. Now, if you're looking for a good anti-aging peptide to stack with and optimize your health journey, check out this video right here where I do a complete dive into the infamous and famous GHK copper. We'll see you guys later.